Welcome everybody to the planning board meeting, special planning board meeting for March 4th at 7 p.m. This was previously posted online on the town's website. Tonight's meeting is 100% remote via Zoom, and we do have a short agenda, which we'll get to here in just a minute. But this was posted previously online on the town's website. It is on Zoom, so if there is any voting, we will have to do that by roll call with the video on. And as far as who is on our call this evening, from the planning board, we do have Melissa Mayo. Yeah, there she is. Melissa Mayo, one of our board members. Gary Sullivan's another board member. Chris Montfort is our vice chair. Eric Diamond is our clerk, and myself, Chad Peck, is the chairman. We do have Rich McCarthy, our town planner, on, and I will in just a minute pass it on to Josh for the MAPC. Our one and only agenda item for tonight is the master plan meeting 10. So I will now hand it over to Josh. Take it away.
Thank you, Chad. Good evening, planning board members. I'd also like to recognize Joe Burke, master plan committee member. Thank you, Joe, for joining us. And then we have, along with our team, Andrea Harris Long and Gurdeep Kaur, who are both looking at, we'll probably be doing the majority of the presenting this evening, but I'll get us started with our agenda and then kick it over to the two of them. So we are basically here this evening to provide an update to the committee and gather your feedback. We are, big sort of headline is that we are squarely turned toward drafting the plan as a document. And so we're working feverishly on that as we are back in the office these days and weeks ahead of us. But before we get to that point with you as a committee, we did want to kind of wrap up some loose ends from our process, I would say. So the first of which is a recap of the phase 2 engagement findings, where we posted goals and strategies and had both a series of meetings and the social pinpoint website and a Qualtrics survey, et cetera. So we wanted to talk through those findings, and Gurdeep will be presenting those for us. We have the sort of draft of a illustrated vision plan, which we have not presented to the committee before, and just wanted to talk that through with you all, so it's not a surprise for you as the draft document comes along. And then as a result of the engagement, we did have some recommended revisions to the goals and strategies, which we'll walk through this evening. And those, I would generally say, remain in a state of refinement as we put together the final plan as well. The last item is to talk about this evening the prioritization for implementation and the action plan, and we'll lay that out for the group as well so we can get any feedback from you all as we turn toward putting that part of the chapter of the document together too. So the next steps are pretty straightforward. I've already described them. And with that, let me advance it to here, and I will hand it over to Gurdeep.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for your time today. We are going to provide an overview of the engagement findings from our latest round. And then we're going to go into what that means for the tweaks to the strategies and goals. So as an overview, the feedback from the latest round was gathered through surveys, both online and paper, and email, and then the majority from our digital platform, which is Social Pinpoint, where respondents were able to comment and like and dislike and downvote. And that's where a lot of these comments that you see here came from, and a lot of the feedback that we've incorporated now into this phase of strategy refinement. So when we analyzed all of the upvotes and downvotes and comments, we were able to conclude that we have a 79% average approval rating across all the goals. The most popular categories by number of the comments received were community health, housing, and community facilities and transportation. The most popular interaction categories by total votes counted were economic development, land use, and community health. And then for the goals with low approval ratings, they also had less engagement, meaning more people are generally supportive of the draft goals and strategies than are opposed. And on this slide, you'll see the overall approval ratings. As you can see, open space is very popular, and then it goes down from there. We have towards the bottom, we have community health, historical and cultural resources, and housing. And a lot of that is really attributed, at least what we gathered from the comments, to just folks needing more information and knowledge sharing about some of those subjects. And we could talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So some of the comments here in those three lowest performing categories, just to address those head on. So this slide captures some comments from the housing goals and strategies feedback. The feedback was pretty divided. There were deeply contrasting perspectives. And while there was negative feedback, there was not much additional support for those comments. So whereas some of the positive comments might have had quite a few upvotes, the negative comments also were not as agreed upon within the engagement community. The negative feedback also touched on fiscal conservatism and concern generally about rising taxes, more than just simply opposition to the strategies proposed. All right, so this one is another topic that came up quite a bit, which was pedestrian infrastructure, things like sidewalks. So this is something that cut across multiple chapters, including transportation, community health, and community facilities. So there is recognition of pedestrian infrastructure as one of the components that make a town vibrant and desirable to live in, and a strong desire for connectivity through sidewalks and other infrastructure that makes pedestrians safer. And while there may be some voices against the idea, there is a clear demand for more sidewalks and pedestrian infrastructure in the town. And then a lot of the comments also concentrated again on a concern about taxes and fiscal responsibility. So just as I'm sure was true with the capital improvements investments over the previous decade, there are always fiscal concerns across the board. That is a priority for some residents. So again, information sharing and knowledge building can help dispel those doubts and fears. Some of these fears are also often dispelled once the project comes to fruition and people see the benefits. And it's important to keep in mind that this engagement represents a much smaller group than what the original survey garnered. And we also had a second municipal immersion day. Our team met with the town administrator and department heads on January 7th. They were able to review the draft goals and strategies and offer refinements based on their current work plans, their departmental priorities, and opportunities that have arisen since the previous immersion day in 2023. Okay, so now we'll be moving into providing a little bit of a comparison between the master plan from 2007 and what we have drafted from, or are in the process of drafting for master plan 2024. So a general summary, bird's eye view, right off the bat in the master plan from 2007, there were 8 category chapters, which included 35 goals and 72 policies. In the current draft master plan, we have 8 categories as well. We have 51 goals, and then we have 234 strategies. So policies are just called strategies now. So clearly there's a great expansion in the number of strategies. And what we'd like to also highlight is that the goals in 2024 are by and large consistent with the goals from 2007. And the goals from 2007 are represented somewhere in those goals and strategies of 2024. So those 51 goals and 234 strategies do have continuity from the 2007 goals. And in 2024, we are offering new ideas that were not previously presented in 2007. And about 51% of those new goals and strategies are new ideas that you won't find in the 2007 goals. And just to take a minute to reflect, so the town has accomplished quite a lot in the last decade. So in 2007, the plan really focused on capital improvements as the priority. So this included the expansion of the fire department, the police station, town hall services, schools, rec center, water wells, etc. And progress has been made on all of these goals. And the water, so we've broken that down, as you can see here. So this is just to reiterate that like the town is, of course, making progress on these goals. There's a lot to celebrate in terms of accomplishments. And now we're looking at how to further build on everything that has come before this. A general view here just about the framework changes. As I mentioned, it's still 8 chapters, both in 2007 and 2024, but there are some differences. So for example, we've consolidated the 2007 chapters of economic development and business and commercial growth. They're now 1 chapter under economic development. Open space and recreation has now been combined together, and we've added sustainability there. And we have introduced 1 new chapter category of community health that incorporates a variety of themes. And here we just touched on a few of the new ideas I mentioned. So in 2007, the master plan prioritized or was prioritizing being prepared towards population growth in the form of capital improvements and built facilities. In 2024, the master plan is geared to address growth and change by strengthening the infrastructure that connects those pieces. So the capital improvement suggestions here look more towards the arteries that connect the town, things like the sidewalks, the sewer system, the digital network that are now vital to support a growth-oriented town. One example of a different approach that we're taking now in 2024 is a more of a holistic approach that cuts across a few categories. So historic and cultural resources chapter from 2007 laid the foundation for the more robust strategies that we're able to put forth today. And we're bringing together things like historical preservation, economic development, and community health, and goals intended to activate these spaces through things like adaptive reuse practices that can serve the Norfolk community. So the 2024 plan takes a more layered approach. We're bringing together things like sustainability and economic development and proposing strategies such as how to support the existing farming community and anchor businesses. We're bringing together community health, transportation, open space, and recreation by supporting an active multimodal transportation system that increases safety for cyclists and pedestrians through improvements such as sidewalks. And this will also increase connectivity to the schools, the parks, and those highly valued natural recreation areas in and around the town. And we're also integrating an equity lens in the desire for an active and vibrant town, making town center the center of town life. And we're incorporating equity by considering challenges such as social isolation, as we saw during COVID, and an aging population to ensure an inclusive town for all community members. So the new plan builds from the learnings from the events of the past decade to recommend strategies in preparation for shifts in demographics, labor trends, climate, and housing. Thank you.
Thanks, Gurdeep. I think I'm up next. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you this evening. So as Gurdeep and Josh mentioned, we did look at all of the good feedback that we received from Social Pinpoint and the different surveys, and we revisited the goals, and also we are continuing to refine the strategies. But this evening, we wanted to present 2 slides of potential refinements to some of the goal statements that we think better clarify, because in some cases we saw that maybe some of the language and the intent wasn't very clear, and that was where people were maybe less supportive of some of the goals. But also to just strengthen them so that they're more relevant based on the feedback that we received that Gurdeep just shared. And so hopefully, since we sent this to you all last week, you've had a chance to look at the proposed revisions here. As Josh mentioned, as we put together the full draft plan for your review, we'll also be sending you a track changes document of all of the goals and strategies from the last time that you saw these at the December and January meetings, so that you can continue to see how we refine these to respond to both the public feedback that we've heard, but then also any feedback that you give us in these meetings. So I can walk through these real quickly and then open it up for any questions or further suggestions. I think just about have a revision for each topic element. We did not intend to do it that way, but I think that's how it worked out. So the first revision that we saw was in this land use goal, just really clarifying that the intent between continuing to review and modernize Norfolk zoning is to make sure that zoning continues to evolve as the town's goals evolve, but then also clarifying that the zoning needs to be consistently preparing the town for long-term climate resiliency and economic sustainability. And that really covers, thinking about how your zoning is helping you advance your economic goals, your housing goals, and then those environmental and climate goals. The second revision that we saw was for the economic development goal. So clarifying what economic diversity and sustainability really means. It means that Norfolk needs to be over the long term resilient with your local economy, and then also making sure that you're supporting a diversity of businesses. So thinking through that long-term mix of what the local economy looks like. The third housing goal, we thought that was really important, I think, with all of the housing goals and strategies, to reinforce that this is to support both today's Norfolk residents, but also think about those who maybe have had to leave that may want to move back, and then also think about how Norfolk can welcome new residents into the future. Under transportation, this one seemed to be maybe a little too wonky. Whenever we say single occupancy vehicles, that always kind of makes people think, oh, you're thinking about just car traffic, and it's not really. This is not just about decreasing car traffic, but really making sure that there are housing choice or transportation choices for Norfolk. So we suggest rewording this entire goal and really emphasize that as we've heard through community feedback, that people in Norfolk want a choice in how they can get around, not just to have to drive, but if there are more walking and biking opportunities, then they can move around town in a variety of ways. So really emphasizing transportation choice. We have a couple of revisions to historic and cultural resource goals. Oh yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I just didn't know if I should make comments as you're going through, or should I wait till the end?
I think we can go as I'm going over each one. So should we move back to the previous
Yeah,
slide?
if you don't mind, the transportation goal. My only concern here is that by expanding it as much as we have, it becomes a non-goal. That's the, it's a risk and a benefit at the same time. I don't know if there's something that we can do to make this a little bit more measurable with regards to how we're approaching this, but that would be my only critique from these ones that I've seen so far.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and we can definitely work on making it a little bit more measurable and actionable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that I would just add too that might show up some in the strategies as well, Chris, that will add some specificity to what's intended by the goal. But I agree, we can wordsmith this a little bit.
Got it. And thank you.
Before we move on, any other thoughts or questions about this slide of revisions? All right, maybe we move to the next one. So this first historic and cultural resource goal, I think that this one, as Gurdeep mentioned, maybe folks didn't quite understand what we were looking at this goal, that the prioritize kind of terminology was throwing people. And so this is really a clarification that this is directing the town to look at different funding opportunities, not necessarily just town funds, but there are a lot of different grant opportunities out there that could support historic preservation and other activities. So just trying to clarify that this could be town funding, but this goal is also really just trying to leverage all of the different sources out there through private, nonprofit, and state and federal programs to support this work. Again, I think this next revision to a historic and cultural resource goal was getting at this idea of historical landscapes serving as conservation and climate resiliency tools is kind of a newer idea, and the wording may be with throwing people. So we offer a refinement here to just make it clear that historical landscapes can serve as conservation and climate preservation tools. And so hopefully this will make it a little clearer for folks reading the plan. I think that the third goal here, community health, this was really, I think, addressing some of the challenges about the Board of Health and their role in the community, and that they really need to be collecting data and understanding community health so that they can then assess where the vulnerabilities, trends, and challenges are to better support the community health overall. And then the final two revisions are, again, just kind of clarifying what we mean. So community facilities and services, looking at how to generate clean energy and prioritize investments to not only reduce the footprint, but also to cover some of those operational energy costs. And then the final goal revision here is, again, just to reinforce that the town should be strengthening and expanding enterprise funds to really serve residents and businesses better and provide comprehensive town services. So welcome any questions or feedback on those revisions, but as I said, we'll be continuing to make minor changes and refinements as we're pulling the whole draft together. And then we will be sharing a track changes version of the complete list of goals and strategies along with the draft plan so that you can really dig into those, since that's where kind of the work meets the plan, and you can look at those holistically, but then you can also see those in the context of the draft plan. And as we are pulling the draft plan together, we're trying to add even more kind of color and a little bit of acknowledgement of where the town has already been making progress on some of these ideas and where there's opportunity to continue to make progress into the future. So with that, are there any questions before we shift into prioritization?
Not a question, Andrea, but I agree with Chris. I feel like I completely understand that you're trying to add to those descriptions so that folks in the community would understand them better, but I think they became maybe a little bit too generic and not as specific and actionable. Those were my thoughts as well when I was reading through these slides before the meeting. So maybe, it sounds very polished and I think it sounds wonderful, but I think if we're maybe more specific with the goals that we want to achieve, that would be helpful. Thinking down the road too, all the board members here, our terms are a couple of years and then we could move on to another board in town, or so if, passing on this master plan to another group of people at some point, I just want them to be very specific and not not have, not wonder what goal we were going for. And it's just, I think it sounds a little bit vague in a lot of them.
Yeah, that's really helpful feedback, and we can think about how we can make sure that they're specific and matching the intent that you all have. And then also, as we do some of that background writing to help people really understand what this means, hopefully that can also help provide clarity and direction so that it can live past your work now and into the future. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about prioritization. So as you all know, we have been thinking really a lot about how can we make sure that you can use this plan to actually kind of kickstart the implementation and really know your marching orders for how to implement all of these goals and strategies. So the plan will include all of these different topic areas with the goals and strategies, but there will also be a pretty robust prioritization and implementation section where we can talk about how you can move forward with creating a master plan implementation committee. It sounds like that's the route that you all want to take perhaps. And so we will make sure that we outline, what that could look like, a few different approaches for how to set that up so that you can ideally kind of have a playbook for moving forward with that if that's how you want to proceed whenever you wrap up the master plan process. We also recognize that it's really important as soon as the master plan is done, that you all work with town departments, you kind of do a roadshow of other boards and committees to really showcase the master plan is done, what's their role in the master plan, and then also ideally, take it back out to the folks who we've engaged throughout this process so that they can see the final document and keep the momentum going from the year that we've been working on this. We also will spend some time talking about the roles for different plan implementers. You as planning board can't do everything, and I think you're probably happy about that. And so we want to help you and help other boards and committees to connect the dots to see where they fit into the master plan and implementation. We'll also spend some time talking about different resources for helping you implement. So we know that the town can't afford to do everything. You need to rely on grants and other resources and, think about your staff capacity. And so we'll try to get some of that information in the plan so that you're not starting from square one with each implementation piece. And then finally, I think we've mentioned this in past meetings, but we're hoping to put together some action plans that can really take all of those goals and strategies and distill them down so that if you, say you want to focus on town center over the next year, you can really have a playbook for what it means to spend a lot of time trying to hone in on improving town center. So on the next slide, we've seen some themes arise as we've been doing the different engagement activities over the past year. We consistently hear that folks really love town center, but they see a lot of room for improvement. That's a big opportunity area for Norfolk. And so we have, as we've shared at previous meetings, a lot of goals and strategies across all of the topic areas that lend to strengthening town center. So we see one of the most obvious action plans being bringing all of those town center related goals and strategies together and creating an action plan for just focusing your efforts on that. We've also heard a lot about the local economy, thinking about that long-term fiscal sustainability piece that Gurdeep mentioned. We've also heard a lot about the residential tax burden and people being unhappy about that. And so again, we have goals and strategies that relate to that, but we would like to pull them all together so that you can have a mini playbook for addressing that. And then same with expanding the mobility options and thinking about resiliency and adaptation. These are the 4 things that consistently we kept hearing about as we went out into the community. We also recognize that 4 might be too many. So I'm curious, we can pause here and see if folks like this idea and approach for trying to make the implementation a little bit more bite-sized and accessible, but also maybe you don't want us to create 4. You maybe think that there are 3 top priorities that you want us to work on, or 2, and once you kind of have the playbook as you start to work on implementation, you can create your subsequent ones as you do your work. We're happy to customize this to make it work for you all. And you can let us know too. You can think about it and let us know as we're putting together the draft plan.
Yeah, I mean, the 4 look fine for right now. But yeah, if we'll think about it and circle back if something comes up.
That sounds great. Oh, I guess I forgot about these visual slides that we had. So just to give an example of the town center. So this just shows all of the goals that are related to town center, and then in the action plan, it'll kind of go into all of these goals, then the related strategies that are most relevant. And then on the next slide, we'll get into the kind of meat and potatoes of it, where we'll look at the implementation considerations and we'll outline who would be the lead. Maybe that's a department, a board, or committee. Time frame, whether it's something that you can accomplish in the short, mid, or long term. Budget, if it's going to be kind of a more affordable project, whether it's something that's going to cost a lot and you're definitely going to need to find outside funding. In some cases, things are going to be location based, otherwise they might be town-wide. So we'll try to distinguish that so that you can start to make decisions based on if you're trying to prioritize certain areas of town. Risk, this means, is it going to be something that has to go to town meeting? That might be higher risk. If it's something that can be done more administratively, that's a lower risk project. And then partners and resources, again, just reinforcing that, if it's a project that you all are working on, you may want to partner with another board or committee to do that work, or we also want to point out any resources or outside partners or community-based partners that you might want to work with. So again, really trying to just make it clear how you can accomplish all of these things. This is also a really nice test for us as we're continuing to refine the strategies. We want to make sure that everything that we're including in the plan is feasible and not easily implemented, because not anything is that easy in government, but at least implementable to a certain degree. So this is kind of a good exercise for us to do as we're working through this part of the process.
I love this slide, Andrea. This is exactly what I've been waiting for.
Good. This is my favorite too. So I've been waiting to get to this point of the process. And now I'll turn it over to Josh.
Yeah, so one thing I think, hearkening all the way back to perhaps the interview as we started this master plan process with you all, is we talked about having a spatial representation of the ideas. And even in our presentation this evening, you can see how easily it is to get caught up in a lot of the words and the terminology. So we think an important part of this process as we pull all the ideas together is also to start to compile all this information in the form of an illustrative vision plan. And so that's what we've started to do here. And it achieves a few goals. It helps to organize all of the information in a different way, a more visual way, but I think it also provides a more tangible representation of the goals and strategies with a geographic location. So it's not as abstract an idea, it's specific places. And so with this illustrative plan, I'll go through the different themes and categories, but the approach is this would find its home in the document alongside the vision statement, which was bulleted, if you recall, and had a variety of statements. This illustrative vision plan would complement that bulleted vision statement, which is text-based. And along with it, we would have some little write-ups that would provide some of the commentary similar to what I'll be going through verbally right now. The four categories that we have start with strengthening. And so it's the categories form the acronym STEP. So there's strengthen, transform, enhance, and preserve. And so this first category of strengthen is really places which are already kind of established and have a foothold, but we've heard in the community in our discussions could be stronger and made better. And so that's what Andrea just outlined in the implementation action plan as well for town center. That's clear. There's been a lot of work around the B1, of course, and the zoning there and investments over the years in town center. And this would be continuing all of those efforts with a focus on what we've outlined here geographically is that B1 zoning district. And then also things like the old airport, which are an area of opportunity to strengthen that as a resource for the town. It's not quite, I would say, established to the same level as some of the other recreational or open space amenities and resources in the town, but could be strengthened to move more alongside those in the coming years as a resource for residents. As we move into transform, there's a little bit more going on in this diagram. And I would also note that this is just trying to get some of these ideas down on paper, but we will be in the effort of making these more graphically pleasing as we kind of move this toward the draft plan. But what you see here on this diagram are the notion of really transformative multimodal system. We've talked about potentially trying to find ways where some portions of that multimodal network could be not associated with the street network. So either using utility corridors or old rail right-of-ways, and we've kind of have done some ground truthing of those ideas with the DPW director, and we think there's some corridors that look like they're actual possibilities. So that's a very exciting idea. I think that's a transformative idea for the town, and it's maybe something that progress can be made over the next 10 years, but I think of that as more of a generational effort, and it would have sort of a generational transformation that would occur for the town. And really any any progress that can be made on that, you can imagine how well it would serve future generations to get that started and somewhat accomplished. There are other transformational properties. The Southwood Hospital property, of course, is a transformational opportunity for the town to clean that contaminated site and potentially provide economic development opportunity for the town. The Buckley Mann property provides a similar opportunity. There are opportunities around potentially at least the correctional institution or correctional property at Cedar Junction, if not others, as the Commonwealth deals with its correctional facilities in different ways. So these are potential opportunities for transformation, both in terms of transportation and land use and economic development primarily. And then there are well-established, I would say, more or better established amenities and resources for the town. And these are all opportunities for enhancement, really places where the town has control over these properties or districts and can continue to make investments in them. So you see for example, the efforts around the town center, the B1 outer district, which is a focus of the town's 3A zoning. So that's an area where you could enhance with additional housing typologies, some additional walkability or connection to the town center over time. And that would be an enhancement both to the town center and those surrounding neighborhoods. The school properties are highlighted in this, as well as an opportunity for enhancement, as well as some of the town-owned open space amenities and the non-town-owned open space amenities such as Stony Brook. But you see the Pond Street complex is an opportunity for continuing to invest in the vibrant recreational programming and resources for the town. Then the other districts such as River's Edge, which is established as a mixed use district outside of town center, as well as the Route 1A and 115 intersection, which is a vibrant and needed economic development center going forward. So these are all opportunities to continue to help those places evolve and enhance positively over time. And then really anything that wasn't in one of those previous three categories, we've heard a lot about preserving the character of the town and preserving the open space, the look and feel of it, the semi-rural characteristics. And so everywhere else, we would say as much as possible is under an effort to sort of preserve that character of the town. So we're trying to direct growth and change and transformation to those areas previously highlighted, which are predominantly previously developed portions of the town. So we're trying to enhance and strengthen those areas and not try to create new areas for major development projects. I know that one of the things that is important to make a remark on in that regard is 40B developments, which the town, even with all of the great planning that the town is doing, you don't have control on those projects currently, unfortunately. So those are things which could interrupt this sort of preservation dynamic which we're talking about. But so this goes hand in hand with some of the housing recommendations, and the sooner the town can come into compliance with 40B, the more you'll have control over this fourth category of preservation across the town. So this is, I think, it's not perfect, of course. When you look at the town at this sort of scale and level, it's a little bit of an abstraction. It's hard to get as specific as maybe you might like, but we do think this is a very useful way to represent and think about the content of the master plan, and will be helpful for residents and others moving forward. Any thoughts or reactions to this? This is, I think, something that's a little on the newer side that we haven't talked about in a while.
Will there be, presuming there'll be strategies in terms of how techniques to do some of the preservation for those areas?
Yes, yeah, it does show up. We do have a few goals and strategies that point to this preservation. And I think as we write up the commentary to go along with this vision plan, the illustrative version, we will have a few other ideas and sort of strategies that get to what these parts of the town are and how best to continue. I would say the town has been, you've done things like had scenic road bylaws and those types of approaches and strategies undertaken. And some of those would be a continuation of policies and programs the town already has. And then we'll see if we have some additional thoughts as well.
Okay.
Oh, and there's one, this gets a little messy, and we'll try to clean this up as a graphic, but this is all of those layers that I just presented one by one compiled together. And I think this is where that maybe the preservation piece is a little clearer, because it's kind of the absence of where all the other markings are. And so it shows up a little bit better here. And I think it's, from a planning perspective, it's, I think, pretty compelling, because the town center sits so geographically centered in the boundary of the town. And so it really is an approach where you have strong transportation corridors, Route 115, Main Street coming into the town center, the rail corridor, and Route 1A going across the southern edge. And you see what has sort of organically evolved in the town as centers of economic development in each of those major intersections. And then I think the notion of this complementary and overlaying network of multimodal connections, which I think to me is a very specific twist on that idea, which has been long desired, I think, by some in the town. But the difficulty and the real implementation issues that we've heard in terms of the easy places where sidewalks can go have been completed. There's not as many easy places to put sidewalks. A lot of people don't want, again, it goes kind of counter to this preservation of character notion, where some people don't want a sidewalk on the road because they like the character of their road as a more semi-rural place without a sidewalk. So I think thinking about this as an off-road multimodal network resolves a lot of those confrontations in these ideas, and allows, I think, a really powerful idea to come forward for the town.
Josh, can you go back to that? I had a quick question. So some of the things have green hash marks, some have orange, but under enhance, it's green with orange. So I'm just confused at what the legend is there.
Oh, I think we were starting to differentiate between enhancements to open spaces and enhancements to economic development centers or activity centers.
Okay.
And
so anything that's with the green hash and an orange hash really falls under the enhance.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so those are enhancements, but we didn't want to give the false impression that we were trying to economically develop open spaces or vice versa. So we distinguish between the two, and we'll work on a better legend and sort of a graphical representation of that. But we just didn't want anyone to be concerned that we understand open spaces are open spaces, and we're talking about enhancing them as open spaces.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other thoughts or questions?
Just with regards to the old airport, it's not necessarily like town owned. So how would how would you recommend we support additional capabilities, features, attractions at that location in a shared capacity?
Yeah, I think that's it's similar in many ways to Stony Brook as a non-town owned resource. And I think that there are strategies that we can put together for the town that might involve providing a more detailed vision for the property, which is within the sort of town's capabilities and the community's capabilities, partnering and working with the property owners, potentially providing assistance either through the pursuit of appropriate funding, if the funding might be available for certain types of improvements, or thinking about even town resources if, for example, an accessible community path were to make a portion of that property a better public amenity. I think it's potentially something that the town could consider as a public use of funds on private property. But there's a whole source of sort of public-private partnership types of opportunities that could occur on a property such as that.
Awesome. And I do also want to call out and say thank you for not ignoring locations like this because it's not town owned.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And it's something that was really comes from the community's feedback. So that's something that was mentioned a fair amount by individuals and comments throughout this process. And so it shows up here as well. All right, so we are continuing to refine all of this that you've seen this evening. And I guess we're in March now, but our yellow vertical bar here of progress tracking was for our February rescheduled session together. But we're really focused on all fronts on moving all of the content which we've either developed through this process or presented to you all or presented to the community, compiling all of that into a concise, I would say maybe start with concise master plan. So that is one of our goals, is to try to boil all this down into meaningful pages. It will, even as however best we can accomplish being concise in the putting together of the master plan, it will still be a hefty document in the end. But we are really focused on bringing the best information from all the parts of this process forward into a cohesive narrative that really states the case for the goals and strategies and provides the background and support for them, and then lays the groundwork and background for the action plan that Andrea outlined in those priorities. So our goal is to continue that work over the next few weeks, get a draft back to the master plan committee later this month is our ambition. And then basically provide the master plan committee with the ability to have a so-called sort of internal review. So you all would have a chance to take a look at it before we start releasing it more broadly to the public. Let me just hang on this for a minute. The broad release to the public is what we're imagining is that we would host a community forum after we get comfortable with where the draft plan is at. And that community forum would be a plan release type of forum where we would walk through the plan, how it's all shaped up, have the document available at the session as well. And that plan release forum would open a public comment period, which typically we would leave open for, say, about a month or so. And we would, through that comment period, gather any final feedback from the community at large, and then can make revisions to the plan based upon, if there are important revisions that you all feel are necessary to make. That's why we provide you the courtesy of this sort of internal pre-review. If there's something that really missed the mark or is not clear, we can make those cleanups and edits before it gets more broadly released to the community at large. The final community forum is a little bit tough, we find, in master plan processes, because we all think of it, I think, has gone through this in most detail, as a bit of a celebration. So oftentimes that lands a little flat with the community at large, because they don't know exactly, like they haven't been as closely involved, and some of them might be excited about a master plan document, but others don't necessarily find it something to celebrate. And so it's really more informational. It's also a lot of information to share with the general public at that point, because it's a full draft plan. And so we'll be selective, probably more focusing on the high level themes that are in the plan, and not try to get into the nitty gritty details, but then invite people, if they're interested, to get into the details themselves and provide us with some additional feedback through a survey, which would be a part of the public comment period. That would be the plan for the public release. We're happy to adjust our thinking on that based upon the committee's feedback, but that would be the general idea, and is pretty typical of these processes. And then the last note I have is that we have on our calendars a hold for March 26th. I think, Rich, we talked about that date with you. If we're fine going with that date, we're fine if, given that we are on March 4th right now because of our rescheduled meeting, if that would more easily land in the beginning of April, I don't think that's that big of an issue.
I'd probably like to get a little feedback from the committee in terms of what your thoughts are.
I'm fine with the 26th. I don't see a conflict right now. I'm not sure. I think that should be fine.
Same on my side.
Yeah, that works for me too.
And the question really is for PC, will you be ready for that as well?
Right.
Because if we don't, I guess if we don't do the 6th, we could always do the April 2nd. Our monthly meeting is on the 9th, which looks to be a pretty big agenda. So it looks like it'd either be this 26th or 2nd. But I mean, I'm fine with the 26th getting back on a normal schedule, like we talked about.
The 26th.
I have a slight,
For me as
go ahead,
well.
Melissa.
Oh,
Yeah, I have a slight preference for the 26th over the 2nd.
And that would fall on the select board meeting night too. So I don't know if you.
Which one, the 26th?
No, I know the 2nd.
2nd does, yeah, right. Yeah, I would prefer the 26th, but yeah.
Well, let's stick with the 26th. I think a comment on us being ready. I don't underestimate that we do have a fair amount of work in front of us to compile all this, but I do think if I would say, to be honest, there's potential that we may fall short of having a full draft plan for the 26th. That's a pretty heavy lift. But regardless of how we are able to make progress over the next few weeks, we will have a very meaningful amount to share with you on the 26th. Whether that be a few completed chapters, or say a lot of completed chapters, or a completed draft plan with some placeholders, or something in between. I think that whatever version of that we're able to accomplish, it will be a lot, and it will be enough that we have a meaningful conversation about it with the group.
Chris is saying a rough outline is a win, and I agree with him.
Yep. I agree as well. Yeah, don't wait to get a full draft before you send it. If you've got it, like you said, a couple chapters, and that's great. See what you got.
Okay.
Because it's going to be big, and we're going to need time to digest it. And if it takes a couple pieces, great. So be it.
Yeah, we've actually done that in past master plan processes to do more of a phased review process at this point, where we basically focus on trying to get a few chapters together and then provide those to the committee for review and kind of do it cyclically. So you're also not hit with a giant 100-page draft document that you feel like you have to get through, but it might be a little more bite-sized pieces as we get things to a point where we feel they can be reviewed. We just send them along as not a full package yet. Does that seem like a reasonable approach with you all?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the word bite-sized. Bite-sized is better than a 100-page document dumped in our lap and go, oh, by the way, we're going to review this in a couple days. Bite-sized.
Right.
Okay, so that will be our approach. We have started with the housing chapter, and then we are, I think the next two that will be closest underway are land use and economic development. So perhaps as we get those, maybe even one of the housing chapter is the closest right now, we can get maybe that one moved a little closer, and then send that as a first try at this process with you all in a few weeks, and then follow that shortly thereafter with the land use and economic development chapters, and then kind of keep them rolling, keeping chapters rolling to you as they come off the presses.
So one recommendation I would have, and maybe it's just me, is when you do send like a chapter, can you send kind of like the rough outline structure of what it's, it's like, hey, this chapter is probably going to slide in here, and these are the other pieces that are still missing. Knowing that it's not done and final, and there might be other pieces that slide around, but because it's kind of a few things will move, but just so we know how this is going to, give us like a framework, I guess you could say, an initial framework. Doesn't have to be built out, but a framework, and then you build out the pieces and provide us with that. I think that'd be helpful just for when we're reviewing it, to know this slides in here and this is what you're reviewing today.
Yes, we can do that 100%. And we are working off of the outline, which we did share with the committee. But I think what we should do is we'll figure out a way to key the draft chapters as we send them along. We can key them to that outline and send that along with the chapters, so that you know exactly what you're looking at and where it fits in with the overall document.
Perfect.
I can just chime in too. We have been working on like the introductory pieces and some of those bridging sections. So we can maybe send some of those. We're trying to also be pretty concise and not have this be like a 200-page plan. So we can send those maybe with the first 1 or 2 chapters, so you can see the framing at the beginning.
Great. Anything you have, like what Chris said, anything you can send, be good. Melissa said the same thing, same sentiment. Anything you got, send it.
Great, we will do that. Don't look too closely at the placeholder text on these. It's just fake text here mostly, but this is the kind of general template and look and feel of the document, which we're headed towards, which has some nice sort of full page images of the town interspersed with the various section breaks and headings. We do plan to try to employ, as you see here, that quick facts call out box. We do plan to kind of have highlight boxes like that throughout the plan that will call the more casual readers' attention to things that are meaningful. In this case, quick facts. In other cases, sort of a sidebar about what Community Preservation Act is, or just some definitions along the way. So someone not reading it word for word can actually get a little bit of useful information as they skim through it. And you can just see a few variations on this theme here as we put together the document. So we have a few, as you can imagine, there's a few cooks in this kitchen back at the office, but we're basically have a more straightforward shared document, a Word document, which is really the text content for the plan as it's being filled in and evolving. And then we have another, an InDesign file, which is the format for the actual formatted report, which that text is being flowed into as it gets completed. So that's the kind of behind the scenes workflow that we're all contributing to. And just to mention that all of the information is on the plan website, though as I say that, Andrea, maybe we should know for ourselves that I'm pretty sure we probably need to do take a look at the website and make sure that it's up to date, because I want to make sure that we have not been remiss on updating the website to its current, with the current presentations and getting everything there. And that is it for us this evening. Were there any other questions or thoughts from the committee?
I do not have any. Do any of the board members or members of the committee?
No, I will say that the use of graphics, the layout and all of that, the design, it's very pleasing to the eye. I appreciate the use of InDesign, having been a graphic designer in a past life. Just the attention to detail is amazing, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I think in addition to the details that Gurdeep shared this evening, as we kind of did the accounting of looking back at the 2007 plan to the current plan, I think that the general look and feel of the new plan and its accessibility visually and with the information readily available will be a pretty different world of difference from what the 2007 plan was to the current plan. And it will be, I think that will be one of the things that's very remarkable difference between the two.
Great.
Well, thank you all for the comments this evening, helpful feedback. We will continue on and integrate those thoughts, and appreciate everyone's taking the time.
Yep. Thank you, Josh and team. I don't think there was any other items on the agenda, so we will adjourn.
We still need a motion to adjourn, right?
Yep. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. We'll have to do a roll call vote because it's video. And Eric did have to drop off a little early, he told us. But we'll go Gary.
Well, if Eric dropped off and I say no, is there quorum to actually end the meeting?
We do.
All right. Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone. Have a good
everyone.
night.
Everyone.
Bye.
Night.